You know what I learned? After this many years of gardening, you know what I learned? Cold crops don't imply cold crops because they're crops that thrive in the cold. They're called cold crops because they survive in the cold. You know what I mean? So, in essence, long story short, for a change, so this would be a short video if I'm able to cut this out of this unhaul video and put it in a gardening video. So long story short for a change. If you're gonna set up a situation for your cold crops, ideally you need to have that situation already set up when it starts to get cold. And since in this era, it doesn't just start to get cold, it gets cold overnight. That means that you're gonna have to have your cold crops thriving while it's still hot in order for you to yield sufficient enough produce to be able to write home about at all. So it's cold right now, and my idea was to plant my cold crops and nurse them to voluminousness so that when the cold snap hit. So my idea has always been to have everything planted and started so that when the cold hits, it they could continue to grow. But it doesn't work like that, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't work like that. In order for that to even work, you have to already have had a garden full of hearty, full, voluptuous, and yielding cold vegetables going in your garden. You had to have started it in the heat for it to already be voluminous to survive the cold. Because if you think that you're gonna, okay, it's getting cold, it's August, I'm gonna plant my cold crops. And if they don't grow really, really fast, when the cold hits, when the temperature's cool, it's not going to start to take off. It's just going to not die. So it'll survive the cold, but it's not going to thrive and provide you endless food throughout the winter just because you happen to have food growing when the temperatures drop. Yeah. Another something they're not going to teach you in the books. Cold crops ain't cold crops because they thrive in the cold. Cold crops are cold crops because they survive the cold and they don't necessarily die. Sometimes they'll even die though, but they don't necessarily. They're not known to die behind a little chill in the air.